I recently had one of my viewers talk about waste in TCGs with booster pack wrappers and everything, and how recycling is important and the planet's nice and we should be nice back. And I wanted to make a video about it, have a little discussion here today about the waste of booster packs and the waste of the products that you get when you buy Flesh and Blood or any other TCG, man. And it's just an open discussion. The main question is, how do we make it better? Because there's X amount of waste. It's a big pile. It's like X high. How do we reduce the size to make it more manageable with recycling, with upcycling, all these different methods, man? And I'm gonna be straight up honest. When I read this and the guy, his name is Event Horizon. That's the username, and he said, "Imagine an ocean filled with booster pack wrappers." And me personally, that's kind of the dream that I have late at night when I'm alone in my bed. That is a Shangri-La of visuals in my mind. But I know that that's bad for future generations, man. I know that I know rappers and oceans is nice for me, but it's probably not great for the sea creatures out there like the whales and dolphins and the barnacles and all that stuff. They probably don't take too kindly to booster pack rappers. They don't have the same appreciation as I do for booster pack wrappers in their little ocean. That it's an acquired taste in my mind. But on a serious note, man, I just want to talk about this topic. Now, in my mind, when you have the industry as a whole, I think it's really hard to change this because us as consumers are baked into our minds that this is a trading card game. We have a box, we have packs, we open packs, we get cards. Like this whole loop of process is ingrained in our being. So having a distinction where we don't use booster pack wrappers altogether, I don't think is very possible. I don't think it's a very easy sell, quite frankly. But let's go to the topic of recycling the packs. Now, I'm no chemist, I'm no scientist. I don't know the composition of a wrapper. It looks like a silvery wrapper. I don't know how easy it is to recycle those things. So I think at the end of the day, figuring out different products that have less wrappers in them is the key. So when they have these draft events and sealed events, you usually have for sealed, right? You have 6 booster packs that you get from the box, and you do. I could definitely see a product in the future that just combines like 6 packs into like one big pack. That's a thing. You could do many different things around that where you use less packs and you just consolidate it into one big brick. I think that there's a lot of opportunities to reduce production costs, and that's the main thing that I think that companies can do overall. Not Legend Story Studios specifically, but just all of them, right? Because when you think of the major two things that they could do as a company, there's two methods. One is reduce production costs, and I think that's the best method because you know what? If you talk to a company and you say, "Hey, you're spending too much on your production costs. You gotta lower them." You know what they're gonna say? They're gonna say, "Great, we'll do it. Let's put less production into our product and have less cost of goods sold into the product so they're getting more profitability and they can keep the price at the same price point but just lower the amount of materials that they have in their end product." I think that that's the perfect way of doing this. The not perfect way, I think, is going about it to where saying, "Hey, you're a company, you have so much money, you need to donate money to these initiatives and you need to have all these things." I think when you see that as a consumer, it might have all those feel good moments in your chest, but it really doesn't do anything, man. I personally don't see it doing anything at the end of the day because all companies are looking at is the tax kickback for donations. They're trying to write it off their tax and do some shady method. They'll increase the price of the products that they're selling, saying, "Hey, we're going to donate X amount to planting trees," and then the amount that they donate, they're just going to write it off on their tax. I'm not some tax advisor or anything. I'm just a normal guy in a normal room, but I know BS when I see it. And side note, man, I never understood planting trees. Like the trees existed before you planted them. If someone says, "Hey, I'm planting 1,000,000 trees," well, didn't the trees exist before you planted them? Weren't they just somewhere else? It's not like there's a dimensional gateway where you put your hand in, you grab the tree, and then now there's one more tree in the world. It already existed. I mean, maybe I guess it's making more trees out there. Yeah, I might be a dumbass in that aspect of, thinking, but maybe it encourages more people to grow trees. But, also, I'd love to see the science behind like how many of those trees that are actually planted for charitable donations and all that stuff, how many of them live like longer than that? I mean, it's one thing to say planted a tree, but there's a lot of work after that, man. You have to water that sucker. You have to make sure that it doesn't die for some reason. So anyway, I'm a little too skeptical in life. Let's go back onto the main topic of just how you make it better. So you have X amount of waste, and how do you reduce it? And I think the biggest way for a trading card game company is to lower the production costs. So if that's booster pack wrappers, put maybe less booster packs in your product. If it's just the size of it, maybe reduce the size. And I want to tell you something that's like really important too is Crucible War. If you look at the booster box, it's smaller. And you as a consumer might be like, that's kind of weird. I don't know. I like the bigger one. But man, I've talked to a couple store owners. They love the small box. You know why? Because it's easier to ship. And guess what happens when it's easier to ship? That's more money for them. They don't have to spend as much money shipping off their product. And I think the overall, if you ask me this question, how do you reduce the amount of waste? I would say reduce the amount of of product that you have in each product. Sell these things for maybe a little less, maybe keep the same price, but just reduce the amount of commons that are in your product. I think for Legend Story Studios specifically too, that we don't really need that much bulk. And that's it's hard thing for me to say because I love bulk. But honestly, the cards and the card values of bulk is just pennies. And you end up if you open a bunch of these boxes, if you open like one or two cases, you've got so much bulk that you have no idea what to do with. So I think reducing the amount of bulk that you have in your product is probably a smart idea. Crucible War having a smaller box size, that reduces the amount of waste. I mean, if you have less packs in your product, if you have less just things in your product, I think that it is going to be better overall. Because if the box is yay big versus yay big, that's less wrapping, less everything around it. So, there's a lot to be said for that. But it's really tough, you don't want to cheap out on your product and then your consumer gets pissed because you're cutting costs and the production isn't as good as it was in the past. And I can definitely see companies overall, it must be really tough because even let's say that they did want to do something about the issue, at the end of the day, they are a company. They're trying to maximize shareholder value. They're trying to make the best damn product that they can. And when you say, hey, you're going to have to put some chains on how much stuff you can actually put in a product and you're limited in that way, it's tough, because you want to make the best thing that you can. But overall, I definitely think it is a big issue that should be considered. Another big thing I think personally, I'd love to hear people comment, man. Please tell me how you think we can reduce waste. The environment's important. Waste is X much. How do we lower it? That's essentially the whole topic here. And I think that another way, man, is maybe you make it so the product box that comes in a booster box has extra upcycle value. Like how cool would it be to like instead of like a square box, you got like a rectangle box, and the rectangle box was a BCW cardboard box that could hold your trading cards. Wouldn't that be so cool? Because man, I love these boxes, but they after you open it, the box doesn't do anything. I mean, you can use it for like shipping materials and what have you, but man, would it be cool if it was either built as like a big box that you could store a bunch of cards, or maybe it had perforated edges to where you could make little like origami things to where you could like make deck boxes out of like cardboard boxes. The material for boxes like booster boxes is perfect for that. I could definitely see something like that, even if it required a little glue on your part and said, hey, cut along these perforated edges to make a box that you could store your cards in. Brilliant. I mean, I just think that there's so many different aspects there to where your current product can be something that the consumer can utilize in the future. Now, let me tell you why those types of things probably don't happen now is because of this thing called cannibalization. And companies are very well of this, even in the restaurant industry. You have different products that you have out there in the market. Let's say you have the chicken fingers, for instance, right? So let's say Golden Corral. No, no, not Golden Corral because they're a buffet. Let's say you have Arby's, and Arby's has the chicken fingers on their menu, and they realize that too many people are ordering the chicken fingers versus the rest of the goods, right? And the chicken fingers are the cheapest ass shit on the menu. Well, here's what they're probably gonna do: cut the chicken fingers, and guess what? All those people who go to Arby's now are gonna buy the more expensive products because they're readily available. Because like they can't buy the cheap thing, they have to buy the more expensive thing. They have to buy maybe the triple decker RB stack or whatever it's called over there. So bringing it back to this current issue, if you do those types of things where you upcycle your product and maybe you make it into a deck box, or maybe you make it so it can hold multiple deck boxes, or you change the product to make it so it can do an extra thing, well, now all the sales in the store, local game store, are going to go down for those types of products that you're upcycling into. You feel me, man? Because if I could literally make 1 to 2 deck boxes out of every box for Flesh and Blood that I buy, I would never buy any more deck boxes again in the local game store. Like, there's no reason to. I can't tell you how much money I spent, like those $2 stupid deck boxes, because I just need a place to put my freaking cards in. So I think that is the big hurdle that you're going to have there. But I can definitely see a way that they can make it so it does something that it doesn't impact really too much with the local game store and how much they're charging. I could also see that even if they did put like these different upcycling things into their product to begin with, where okay, not only do you, and I know upcycling is like a weird like indie word, but essentially what I mean is you buy a booster box, right? And let's say you got a box to hold your cards and the packs, like a fat pack in Magic the Gathering. You got something extra with it. You got, the thing to hold your cards, you got the your pack wrappers, and, you get, you know, those two things instead of just cards. I definitely think there's a way to do it to where maybe you could increase the price on this new product that has an extra thing attached to it. So that's kind of my views on it. I think ultimately the whole companies have to donate to certain initiatives. Don't think that's the route. I think it's more of there needs to be products that reduce production costs. So that is, you decrease the amount of booster packs that you get in the product, or make it so more cards are in each booster pack. And if you do that, I mean, think about it. If you even have like a booster pack right now, and instead of one, you have 3 different booster packs combined in one singular pack, that reduces costs by a lot. I mean, that reduces the amount of packs that you'll need for your product by a lot, because it doesn't have to cover the whole surface. It just has to cover the girth. The girth increase is the only extra amount for like one giant pack versus small packs. So I definitely think production cost decrease is a big thing. And not only I think is it going to be good for the earth, I think it's also going to be great for local game stores, because local game stores, when they sell their products in these smaller containers, these smaller different things, and have to ship it out, to people, or if they have to just inventory space as well. I mean, I'm telling you, man, I've heard so many game store owners say, man, I just don't have enough space. And if you have these things to where it's much less space in your store, I mean, that's a plus for them too. And also when they're shipping it, it's a lot less. And it's great for your consumer because now they don't have to buy more bulk. They can have what they actually kind of need. And hey, maybe they get some extra part of it to where it's a deck box too. So those are my thoughts. I think that two things really. It's reducing product costs, first and foremost, reducing the amount of bulk, reducing the need for too many packs. But then after that, I really think it comes down to just, how can you make these materials do some extra purpose? There's a lot of cardboard that's around the product. What else could you make out of that? What else could you do? So, anyway, that's what I think. Please me know what you think in the comments, if you have ideas of how this waste can be managed more appropriately. Again, ultimately, I think that if you look at the industry as a whole, I don't know how big it is. I don't know how big of an impact it's making on the whole environment versus like the cruise line industry, or some like the airplane industry. And I think that there's a lot more big boogeyman out there, uh to really tackle with this whole waste management in the environment type thing. But I think that even if you just look at this issue with trading card game industry, I think companies can use it as a great excuse to cut production costs and make a lot of money out of it, but also being good to the environment. So that's what I think. And again, thank you, Event Horizon, for commenting on my previous video. I try to respond to as many people as I can in the comments, and I thought this was a really cool topic because sometimes I'm thinking of topics, and he commented like this, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a good thing to talk about. Not a lot of people are thinking about this at this current time, so I think it's important. And even though I like an ocean full of booster pack wrappers, I know that it's probably not the best in the long run. So, cheers, man.